right, welcome you guys. So let's get started in a child's pose. And it's totally fine to start in a different shape if child's pose is not for you today. We're just gonna get centered, get connected, see what we might need. Yeah, so you could have your toes together, knees nice and wide, or they could be closer. You could have your hands out in front of you, maybe resting by your hips. See what feels right today. And take a few deep breaths. Might be a good idea to close your eyes if you haven't already. Just taking a moment to turn inward, to notice what you're feeling physically in your body, what your breath is doing. Beginning to connect with the earth below you, with the land that you are on. Acknowledging your relationship with that land, which might be starting to feel a little bit more present or intense as the weather warms up and things begin to bloom around us in the natural world. And noticing also that we just had a new moon in this kind of brighter, warmer season. So often the new moons are a little quieter energy, a little more reflective. But as we shift into the summer season, there's also a little more light and energy. So you might be feeling relatively balanced actually at this particular time. But just taking a moment to notice what that is for you, so that you can connect your breath and your body and your intentions and just be in your practice, whatever that looks like today. And if you haven't yet, you might want to invite the Ujjayi pranayam, that little whispering sound at the back of your throat, drawing the breath up along the midline, widening your ribs on the inhale, and on the exhale, gathering back down to the pelvic floor. When you feel called, you can bring this breath into some movement, sort of aiming toward downward dog. If you want to go there right away, that's fine. You might want to start with some cat and cows, which is where I'm at today. Up on hands and knees, inhaling into a back bend and exhaling to curl under. This could be done with the eyes closed as well, though, and you could add circles, side to side motion, just whatever feels right for you. It's a little bit of an exploration of the spine with the breath. Excuse me. And making your way into your downward dog when you're ready, if you haven't already. So walking the hands a little bit farther forward, tucking the toes, lifting up the bum. But you can keep moving intuitively, for example, by bending into one knee at a time or swaying your hips. Finding just a little bit of a bend in your elbows and hugging them slightly together. You want your shoulders nice and deep into their sockets and your neck just relaxed. Drawing your belly in and up gently. lengthening your back. And then making your way forward to standing forward bend at the top of your mat. Feet could be hips distance or a bit wider if you want, bending the knees at least a little bit. You could rest your elbows on your knees or hang down or have your fingertips on the ground. Wherever you are is great. Maybe just relaxing the neck and the jaw if you can. Maybe give the head a little shake. And then we'll roll up, leaning back into the heels, gathering in the belly, and slowly rising. Head and shoulders come up last. Of course, if that doesn't feel right, just come up with a nice neutral spine. Taking your time to find your Tadasana. Staying connected with your breath. And let's flow, reaching your arms up to the sky. As you inhale, exhale, folding over the legs. Halfway lift, draw your heart forward, and then right foot steps back, knee can come down. Inhaling into a low lunge, pressing the hips forward, and then downward facing dog, connecting the palms, stepping back. Come forward to plank on or off your knees. Lower down all the way if you can. Point the toes and lift into a little cobra. If you're not on your belly, you could do a little cat and cow there. And then returning to downward facing dog. Right leg rises to the sky on your inhale. And exhale, step it through. You can lower the knee down, come into a lunge, lifting the heart on your inhale. And then exhale to the top of your mat. Lengthen and melt. Bend your knees, look forward, rise all the way up. You can lean back a bit at the top if you want. And then all the way down to the earth. Lengthen, inhale. Left foot back. High or low lunge, reaching the heart to the sky, hands to the sky. And then downward dog. Come forward to plank. You can lower all the way down, or you could try a little push up. And then pull through to cobra, or a cow, or upward facing dog, which is here with the knees lifted, shoulders down the back, and then press back to downward dog. Catch your inhale, left leg will rise to the sky. And then step through. High or low lunge, inhale, rising. And then forward bend to the top of your mat. Lengthen and fold. Bend your knees, rising all the way up. And then hands come together in front of the heart. Right away, begin again, reaching the arms up. And dive. Lengthen. And right foot back. Inhale. And downward dog. Come forward. Little push up or lower all the way down, or cat and cow. Pull through to your back bend. And then downward dog. Right leg to the sky. And through. High or low lunge. And forward bend, following your own breath. It's totally fine to go faster or slower than me. Halfway lift and fold. Bend the knees all the way up and all the way down. Lengthen and left foot back. Inhale Beautiful, downward dog, plank, little push-up or all the way down. Pull through to your back bend, pull those shoulders down your back, and downward dog. Left leg will rise. Helps to lean a little to the right to step that left foot forward. Good, rising into your lunge and forward bend. Lengthen and melt. Bend the knees, rise all the way up. Hands to the heart, take a moment just to pause and feel. Okay, we're going to keep going, but you might want to have your 2 blocks just handy. You might want to use them. We're going to keep flowing, but we're just going to add on a little bit to the sequence. Yeah. So coming back to your standing as you're ready. Inhaling, reaching your arms up. Exhale, dive, just as we've been doing. Halfway lift, lengthen. Step your right foot back. Bring down the knee. This time you can have the hands on the blocks or the ground is fine. As you inhale, pull your hips forward and lift your heart. So make sure your knee is far enough forward that it doesn't really go past your ankle. And as you exhale, we're going to straighten that leg and bow in. Inhale, hips come forward. So you might notice my back toes are untucked. My knee is a little happier if I do it that way. But you could do the opposite. You might have a block underneath the knee. And even with my toes untucked, the foot is a little bit active. I'm just pressing the top of the foot a little bit into the ground. We don't want floppy knees here. Let's do one more. Okay, and then we're going to inhale, look forward, exhale, step back to downward dog. You can take your variation of vinyasa here. You can always skip this if it's not working for you right now. When you get back to downward dog, take your right leg up to the sky and roll the hips open. You can have the legs straight or bent, but just find that little bit of openness in the hips. And then next time you exhale, step that foot to the outside of your mat, so towards the right hand. Lower your back knee down, toes again can be tucked or not. You could put your hands back on the blocks if you like. So the toes are just a little bit turned off to the side and the foot is wide, okay? We're gonna inhale here, exhale and straighten. So like before, but we're on a little bit more of an angle. Okay, just opening the hip in a little bit of a different direction. Feel free to put a block underneath your back knee if it's uncomfortable. Just one more like that. Okay, and then next time you come forward into that wide lunge, stay there, letting your hips melt forward, okay? And you can add winging the knee open a little bit if that's comfortable for you. So you can pick up the toes. I'll just do it facing forward here. You can see that. Allowing the knee to open, but keeping the ankle really nice and steady. So the inner edge of the foot comes off the ground and we're not sickling the ankle, we're keeping it really nice and supported. Okay, you can stay right here if you want to come down a little bit lower. You can, maybe putting your elbows on the blocks, for example. We're not going to be here too long. We're just kind of saying hello to the hip in this direction. I find this could be quite nice for the psoas too if you stay up high. Okay, inhale. And as you exhale, gently straighten the leg in that same way, just to kind of bring the hip back. And then heel toe your foot back in just to your neutral lunge position and step forward nice and light. Halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Bend your knees, rising all the way up to standing. And then diving all the way down to the earth again. Halfway lift. And your left foot steps back. Bring your knee down, use your blocks if they're helpful. Inhale, hips press forward. Exhale, you're straightening your front leg and bowing. So one of my favorite descriptions for this movement is hip flossing. So there's this kind of lovely back and forth, just getting those little sticky bits out of the hips in this direction. Take your time, there's no rush. Let's do one more round. And then we'll bend into the leg, step back to downward dog, and you can optionally take a vinyasa if you'd like. And again, there are lots of different variations of vinyasa. Cat and cow is great. Okay, returning to downward dog, your left leg will go up to the sky and you can roll the hips open. And you can experiment with legs straight or knee bent, doesn't really matter too much here. Just getting that little bit of space in the hip. And then on an exhale, stepping it forward, but a little bit wide. You can always heel toe it there afterwards. Hands on the inside with the blocks if you want. Toes turned off a little bit on an angle. Inhale, hips melt. Exhale, we're straightening the leg, but on that little bit of an angle. Inhale. And exhale, taking your time. Maybe even eyes closed. Do one more like that. And then we're going to stay in that lunge position and just explore this, or allow the knee to wing open to the side. Maybe lowering down a little bit if you want to. You don't have to get a good stretch here. I'm going to stay up here myself for right now because this is feeling pretty good, like what I need. And if you are staying up high with me, just think really nice long sides of the waist, pulling the heart forward and up, shoulders down, pressing the back foot into the earth gently. Good, inhale. And as you exhale, gently bring the knee back in to center and then gently straighten the leg just to kind of reorient the hip. And then we'll bend, walk the foot back into the midline and gently step forward to the top of your mat. Halfway lift and fold. Then the knees rise all the way up. Then bring the hands to the heart and just take a moment to be with that. To receive. Okay, let's come into a squat. So widen your feet apart, allow the toes to turn out, similar angle to what we were just talking about. Bending the knees and sinking your hips. If this doesn't work for your knees, feel free to sit right down on the ground and just work with opening the knees that way. You can also have a block underneath your hips or a rolled yoga mat underneath your heels if your heels are really lifted up. Press your elbows into your inner thighs, squeeze the glutes gently, and if you can, try lifting up the toes. Get really nice and long through your spine. Take a nice deep breath. And another one. One more. Awesome. And then we'll sit down and we'll lay onto our backs. If you are pregnant, just roll to your side first and then onto your back. Kind of like that. Place your feet on the floor. Relax your belly for a moment. Take a deep breath. And as you exhale, gather your pelvic floor in and up and your belly button back towards your spine. So you're not changing anything about the spine, you're just kind of activating some of the core muscles. You can keep your head down or interlace your fingers around behind the back of your head and curl your shoulder blades up off the mat. So I'm just going to offer first marching. It's great if you are working on core rehabilitation, if you're working on regaining strength in this area. If you're pregnant, if you have lower back pain, if it just feels safer here, if this works for you, just lifting one knee at a time is perfect, okay? If you're okay to go a little bit further, you're gonna lift both of your feet up off the ground, squeeze the knees together, feet together. Again, gather in the belly and the pelvic floor. Inhale, and as you exhale, lightly tap your toes to the ground, and then lift the knees up. So if this isn't necessarily the best one for pregnancy, you can see how it goes. The thing you want to avoid, and this is for everyone, not just if you're pregnant, but you just don't want the belly kind of bulging up as you're working. So really focus on drawing that belly in and up as you're working here. Try to relax your jaw and your neck, even as you're working pretty hard with your core muscles. Okay, let's take a little rest, okay? So next time you bring your feet down, just relax. Let the knees fall apart, soles of the feet together, or feet can go wide, knees together. And just take a couple deep breaths into your belly, relaxing any tension in your pelvic floor. Okay, so we're gonna add on a little bit. And keep in mind that, again, if the marching is working for you, or if that last exercise is working for you, feel free to keep it that way. Otherwise, we'll just add on a little. So again, gathering in pelvic floor, belly button, lifting the shoulder blades if that feels okay. Lifting up the knees, squeezing them together. So as before, we're gonna inhale, the toes tap down really gently. Then we're gonna lift the knees, separate the knees, but keep the toes together, and try to squeeze the knees and the elbows together. So you're gonna be curling your lower back a little bit. Then the knees are gonna come together. It's just a neutral spine. We're not kind of arching, but it's not as flattened to the ground as the toes come down. We're bringing them in, squeeze, okay? Knees together, inhale. Exhale, knees come in and wide and squeeze. Okay, so again, I don't really care so much if you're doing the full movement, okay? But I just want you to look out for that belly drawing in and up. The muscles aren't bulging forward. The reason for that is we want to make sure we're using the deep abdominals and not just the superficial ones. And there's, some reasons we don't want to bulge forward, especially if you are pregnant or postpartum. Good. So really asking the abdominals to work in a few different ways here. Yeah, you guys are doing awesome. Let's do 3 more. 2. And 1. And relax. You can again take the knees apart or together and just take a few conscious breaths into your belly, making sure that you are relaxing your belly muscles, but also your pelvic floor, which can sometimes tense up a little too much. So just like nice, big, relaxed belly, balloon on your inhale, expanding, and as you exhale, just deflating. One more big breath, sigh if you want. So good. Okay, we'll draw the knees in. We're gonna make our way back to downward facing dog. So if you're not pregnant, you could rock and roll forward and back along your spine, cross your ankles, and step back into your downward dog from there. If you are pregnant, you're just gonna roll to your side first, okay? And then take whatever variation of Vinyasa works for you. And that could include cat and cow. Okay, we're gonna meet in downward dog. Let's take a sigh. Okay, Okay, find that little bend in your elbows, hug them together, shoulders nice and deep into their sockets. We're gonna take the right leg up, and I find that I like bringing my left foot in just a little bit closer before I send my leg up. I find it helps me to feel a little bit more balanced. We're gonna open up the hips like we talked about before, pointing the knee up to the sky. Okay, you can straighten the leg or have the knee bent, either is fine. You're gonna inhale, and then on the exhale, bring the knee in towards your chest, shoulders come over the wrist as long as your shoulders feel okay, and you're pointing your knee off to the left. Then you're gonna send your leg back up to the sky, open the hips on your inhale. Exhale, knee comes under and across to the left. And again. Okay, this time the knee comes across to the left, and you're going to straighten that leg out, landing the outer arch of the foot on the floor outside of the left side of your mat, so your legs are crossed. My foot is pretty close to my hands. I have some flexibility here. It doesn't have to be that close. It could be closer to your other foot. Okay, and then press into both hands, press into both feet, and lift your right hip up and back. So in an ideal world, you're feeling an IT band stretch here, the outer thigh. And a little trick, if you are working on your hands and knees today, if you can access it, you could do a little hands and knees thread the needle. Okay, so you're gonna get a similar stretch down here if you wanna work that way. Okay, so you can absolutely stay here, keep working this place. Some of you might want a little more juice today. You can step your right hand a little bit farther forward, spin your left heel down as if you were gonna do warrior two, and reach your left arm up to the sky. This one's sometimes called rock star, which is kind of a silly name, but that's the one I've heard. If you really want to go for it, you can lift your right foot, just float it off the ground. Get those inner thighs working. Okay, and then back to three-legged downward facing dog, or three-legged hands and knees if that's where you're at today, that's great. And then step through to a lunge, high or low, I don't mind, whichever one works for you. I'm gonna do a high lunge, bending my back knee a little bit, rising up. Hug the inner thighs, drawing the tailbone down, interlacing the fingers around behind the back. Okay, and then I'm gonna press my fist down, lift my heart as I work my back leg towards straight, but I wanna make sure I'm not kind of collapsing in the lower back. I wanna keep some length there and think more about up than forward with the chest anyway. Hugging those inner thighs for balance. Nice deep breaths. Okay, inhale, and then we're gonna come into pyramid. So release your hands. You can use the blocks here if they're helpful. You don't necessarily have to. Pick up your back knee. If it's down, step your foot in a little bit so that the heel lands and both legs can be straight with the hips square. And your feet are hips distance apart. They're not right in line with each other. Lengthen your heart, drawing the right hip back. Stay there or fold. Stay there or flow, inhaling to lengthen and exhaling to melt. Wherever you are, breathe. Press the right big toe into the mat and draw the outer right hip back. Okay, from here, look forward. You can walk your hands a little bit forward. You can bring your blocks if you're using them. Bend into your front leg and pick up the back one, coming into a standing L or a standing splits. Try to keep your hips square. Draw your heart really nice and low towards the earth. And then you can experiment with balancing. Maybe one hand to the ankle, maybe the other one comes there too. A little trick for me is I'm looking at the floor, not my foot, and I'm really aware of my left leg in space. Doesn't mean I don't fall over, but it helps. Inhale, and then gently release both of your feet to the earth. You can take them a bit wider, maybe mat's distance. Take a halfway lift and fold. Feel free to stay or hold opposite elbows, soften the knees a bit, and just sway from side to side. easing any tension from that little sequence. And then we'll roll up. You can keep your feet wide if you want. You may come to standing tall in stillness. You might need a little wiggling or fidgeting. And then heel to your feet so that the heels are back underneath your hips again. So we're going to do kind of a half moon pose. It may or may not be the whole way into the pose. So maybe I'll just show you what it might look like before we all go into it together. So I'm just going to put my block just in line with my pinky toe, about a torso's distance away. Okay, hands are going to be at my heart, and I like to start with this Hakini mudra here, the fingertips pressing into each other. I'm going to plug my right leg into its socket, pour my weight into the left, and I'm going to start to lean my weight forward as I open. Okay, so it doesn't have to be super far. Okay, you could be kind of just experimenting here in this place. Some of you might find that you can come down to the block and come into the more traditional half moon shape if you feel ready for that. Okay, so go ahead and give that a try and just kind of see how far your body wants to take you today. The hips are opening. Okay, yeah, so there you go. Go ahead, leaning your weight into the left foot. You got it, letting your hips open to the side. And again, looking at the floor, really helpful for balance. You can open your arms up when you feel ready. Maybe you're coming to hand down, maybe you're not. There's no pressure. Okay, some of you I know are great lovers of half moon pose and you want to add a little quad stretch. It's totally fine with me if you do that. For some of us, that's like an easy casual stretch. For others, it's like a major peak pose that we have to really work towards. So just if it's easy and comfortable for you, you can add that. If it feels like, no way am I doing that, then don't. That's fine. Okay, inhale, and next time you exhale, release your leg if you've got it. In your own time, we're coming into warrior two. So let the foot land, let the arms open. Take a moment to settle there. Finding your feet, knee over your ankle, and then right away, let's come into exalted. My favorite variation right now is holding the left wrist and leaning back. But you could also just do it with the hand on the leg, reaching the arm up, or holding the back of the skull. Those are all great variations. Just leaning back. So good. Okay, straighten your front leg, bring your chest up through center, parallel your feet so that all of your toes face the long edge of your mat. Hands on your hips, hug your elbows back, and then fold down halfway. Bring the fingertips under your shoulders, and then walk them forward and melt your heart back in between your thighs. Knees are a little bit bent, and you're kind of leaning your weight into your heels, so there's some traction for your heart. And there isn't really any weight on your fingertips. They're just digging into the ground to give you some length so that your heart can be heavy and feel nice. You can experiment with how much of a bend you want in your knees there. You can also shake your head out. I love that shoulder stretch. Yeah, nice, you guys. Beautiful. And then when you're ready, bringing the hands underneath the shoulders. Let's turn to the front of the mat, make our way back to downward facing dog. Optionally, take any variation of a vinyasa. You can always rest in a child's pose too if you're feeling like, whew, I need a second. And maybe just while we're taking a second, I'll give you a little more information on how I'm doing the vinyasa today. So there are different ways of doing it, and we want to be really careful with our shoulders as we go through. But basically, the most what's the word, sort of troublesome part of the vinyasa is the chaturanga part. It's the little push-up that we're doing. So we want to basically make it from plank pose through the push-up into upward facing dog. So upward dog, we have the chest a little ahead of the arms and the shoulders pulling down the back. So my hands and my shoulders are kind of coming back. So my weight is a little bit forward. So when we come through plank, we need to kind of come forward and through our chaturanga. So here's my plank, hands are right underneath the shoulders. And then I lean forward a little bit, lower down about halfway, and then I scoot my toes back and then pull through so that I don't end up in like a weird place for my shoulders to be in that upward facing dog. Okay, so that was just a little bit of extra information. If you'd like, go ahead and give that a try, or just take a couple more breaths and rest, and I'll watch just if you want to do that. I'll check it out. So inhaling into your plank, you lower forward and down, and then you inch the toes back and then press up into your upward dog. Nice. Beautiful. Good, you guys. Nice job. Okay, let's take our downward dog, or you could again do hands and knees, that's fine. Take your left leg up to the sky. Again, it helps me to just bring my right foot a little bit closer into center. We'll roll the hips open. Leg could be straight or bent. Inhale. On the exhale, the knee comes across to the right. And then back up to the sky. And 2 more times. Across to the right, like outer right arm if you can. And across. And this time we straighten the leg and then push back into downward dog. So the foot may drag back a little bit, okay? It is downward dog, but we've got legs twisted. And you can experiment with how far your left foot is to your hands. So mine is pretty close. Yours might need to be a little bit more towards the back of your mat, just kind of see what works for you. The foot is nice and active, and I'm pressing my hips back and up, especially the left hip. So my goal here is a stretch in the outer thigh. Should feel good, that's the idea. This is one of many ways to stretch the IT band. It doesn't work for everybody. I really like it personally. Okay, and then keep the legs twisted if you can. You can step the left hand forward, spin the right heel to the ground, and see if you can reach your right arm up. Press into the floor with that bottom hand so that your shoulder stays integrated. If this doesn't work for you, of course, skip it. You could also be in that thread the needle version of hands and knees. If you really want to work the inner thighs, pick up that bottom leg. Nice, inhale. Woo. Back to your 3-legged downward facing dog. Take that left leg all the way back up to the sky. And then through your lunge, high or low is fine. I'm going to do high. So feet, make sure that they're hips distance. Bend that back leg a little bit. Rising up. Square the hips, interlace your fingers behind your back. And I've just got my other thumb on top, so it feels a little different. Working that back leg just straight, lifting the heart, keeping the lower back long. Use your ujjayi to help you stay balanced. Inhale, and then gently release the hands. You could put them on your blocks if you want, and come into pyramid. So the back foot steps in a little bit. Straighten your front leg. Lengthen your heart forward, drawing the left hip back. Some of you may want to stay up high, others may want to fold, and some of you might be in a flowing mood. So lifting as you inhale and gently folding as you exhale. Up to you, but wherever you are, stay connected to that rhythmic ujjayi breath. Nice. And then from here, we'll explore a little balancing pose. So bending into the front leg and exploring lifting up that back one. You could definitely have your hands still on the blocks. Think about squaring the hips, sending that heel nice and high and the heart low. One or both hands might come to the ankle if you want to test out that balance a little bit, really reaching the right foot up to the sky. And I recommend at least a little bit of a bend in the standing leg so you're not locking out your hamstrings. Inhale, and then gently release. Take your feet nice and wide. Soften the knees, hold opposite elbows, and just sway gently, letting that go. Roll up, take your time. Finding your balance at the top, you might need some movement or just a moment of stillness. Okay, bring your heels underneath your hips again. Fingertips press into each other. Pour your weight into your right leg, de-weight your left, and then start to send it back as you open your hips. So just exploring how far you want to take that. Keep a little bit of a bend in your right leg and that knee stays pointing forward. It's the hips that are opening here. Your right hand may or may not come down to a block. You can kind of see how that goes. The half moon pose has the heart and the pelvis right in line with each other. There's quite an opening for the hip in our thigh region. So be gentle with yourself. And if you've got the type of body that's really comfortable and easeful in this shape, which certainly isn't all of us, and you want to add that little quadricep stretch in Chandrasana, feel free to reach for your back foot, but don't worry too much about that. That's a little cherry on top. If you like it, if it's not so comfortable for you, it won't be like a cherry on top, so be where you are. Okay, gently release and come into your warrior two. Take a moment just to make sure that your foundation is there. Front heel in line with the back arch, knee over the ankle, and then lean back into your variation of exalted, which again, I really like holding that top wrist and just opening up into the side stretch. But this is the more classical variation. You could also hold the back of your skull. So good. Straighten your leg. Come back through center, parallel your feet. Hands to hips, lift your heart, and fold forward into wide-legged forward fold. Take a little halfway lift, and then fold on in, kind of aiming the crown of your head towards the ground. And walk your feet in between, walk your hands in between your feet so that all your fingernails and toenails are kind of in line. Or the hands might even be slightly behind the feet. And you're aiming the crown of the head to touch the ground so that you're in a tripod headstand kind of a shape. Now don't feel like you have to put any weight on your head. I know for some of you, your head is not going to be on the ground, and that's totally okay. A little trick is if your head is kind of close to the ground and you're almost there, here are a few things you can do. One is widen your feet a bit more. Okay, another is bend the knees and press the heels apart like you were trying to stretch the mat. That'll activate your outer hips and release your lower back. Okay, some of you might feel like you could put your knees on your elbows. We'll talk about this a bit more in a second. Some of you might be kind of happy in your tripod, but I'm going to teach more about this in a moment. So just be where you are for right now. Good. Okay, and then lift your head up off the ground, hands under the shoulders. You might want to give your head a little shake. Turn to the top of your mat, step back, and take Vinyasa. If you want one, feel free to skip it. Okay, and we'll just talk a little bit more about this tripod headstand, which is a really nice inversion that's accessible for some of us. I will say though that it does put a fair amount of weight on your neck. So if you have some neck issues and that doesn't feel comfortable for you, you can skip it. You could take child's pose instead, or if there is an inversion that you are comfortable in, please feel free to take that. Otherwise, we'll try this. Okay, so on your knees, with your knees really close together, you can put your head right down and then place your hands so that you can see them really easily with your eyes. And it's very easy for you to see that your elbow is directly over top of your wrist. And if you were to place something heavy on your elbow, it would stay because the forearm bones are straight up and down. Yeah? Feel free to double fold your mat if the top of your head is kind of sensitive. And feel free to watch me if you're newer to this shape, okay? So here I am, this is my setup. It's great to stay here. Otherwise, I'll tuck my toes, lift up my knees and put them on my elbows. Okay, and then I'm gonna press my toes into each other, engage my core, and lift the heels. This is our little training wheels headstand. Okay, and then you could use some of that core work that we were doing before. Hug belly in, lift the knees. That's a half headstand. You might straighten the legs. It's a little bit of a pike. The feet are slightly in front so that when you fall out, if you fall out, the feet come in front of you and you don't do a somersault. Feel free to grab a wall though if you're worried about that. But I find with tripod, not that it's better without a wall, but you don't want to get this idea that your feet can kick up behind you. You really want to use your core to go up and then almost send the legs forward so that you're really strong there, so that you fall out safely if you're going to fall. Okay. So feel free to give that a try. Half headstand is an awesome place to stay. You can even do your crunches upside down if you're wanting more core work today. Yeah. And then when that's complete for you, we'll meet in child's pose. And just take a few breaths there. If you want, you can rock your head. Beautiful. Okay, when you're ready, you can gently roll up from your child's pose and we'll meet on our backs. So some of you are already there doing your kind of legs up the wall variation. We're going to take a couple bridges, which should feel pretty nice after all of that work that we did, including that little visit to headstand. So heels underneath the knees. I like outer hips distance apart. Some people like narrower, so you'll kind of have to experiment a little bit with what works for your body. My toes are lifting, spreading, and reconnecting. Elbows by the ribs, pressing the elbows down and apart and squeezing the shoulder blades together. I like to keep my back neutral. I'm not gonna curl my tailbone up. Some people teach it that way. I'm just gonna keep it neutral, press into the heels and lift. I'm squeezing my glutes, but I'm also squeezing my inner thighs together. I don't want my knees to splay apart. Okay, you can stay here or maybe try interlacing the fingers under the body and snuggling the shoulders under. Again, hug those inner thighs and push the floor forward with the feet. Such a therapeutic pose. Gently release down. Let the knees fall together or apart. Take a few moments just to relax, to receive. You can stay right here or we'll take one last back bend. Same thing, bridge pose, pressing the elbows down and apart, lifting the hips, interlacing the fingers under the body. Or some of you might want to try a wheel. You can place your hands beside your ears, hug the elbows together, lower the hips a little bit, push into the feet and lift to the crown of your head, and then straighten your arms. Not for me today. I hurt my shoulder at the playground with my kid doing something stupid. So I'm not going to take wheel today. And shin into chest if you're coming out of wheel, gently lowering down from bridge. And again, knees together or apart, just take a moment to feel and soften. And imagine that you're just kind of letting any excess energy kind of drip off your body like water. Okay, bring your feet together, knees together. And then cross your left thigh over your right one and gently bring your knees to the right. If that doesn't feel good for whatever reason, just stack your knees and take a simple twist, okay? You can take your left arm open to the left and let that shoulder be nice and heavy. Okay, gently through center, engaging the core, feet together, knees together, switch sides, right thigh over the left, and then gently bringing the knees down to the left, right arm out to the right. If this doesn't feel right for any reason, just stack the knees. Beautiful, and then we'll gently come back through center. As you're ready, draw the knees in, rock a little bit from side to side, and then you can take your knees wide and your soles of the feet to the sky, taking happy baby, which is generally quite soothing for the lower back, and it's really nice for opening those inner thighs, which we've done some of today. We've also done a little bit of strengthening for the inner thighs. Okay, when you're ready, let's release that, sending the legs up to the sky and giving them a little shake. And then we'll make our way into Shavasana. So for you, that might mean that there's something left that you need in your practice that you want to do before we can completely relax. Please feel free to add in that last pose or whatever it is, as long as it's generally calming so that we can prepare for Shavasana. And, you know, the poses are known to be calming or not, but everybody's different. So whatever works for you, trust yourself, okay? You can have a bolster under your thighs if you're coming to Shavasana. If laying flat on your back doesn't work for you, you could certainly lay on your side or take any shape that does work. And when you get there, take a nice deep breath. And receive. And take a moment to notice how you're feeling in your body right now. Maybe taking a moment to notice if there's anything that your body wants to say to you in this moment. And then if you have the time and you'd like to stay, you're welcome to. Otherwise, you can begin to deepen your breath and bring some small movements into your body. You can reach your arms up, taking a nice full stretch. And draw your knees in and roll over to one side. Press yourself up to a seat and take your hands together at your heart or over top or wherever works for you. Gently bow your mind to your hands, taking a moment to honor and acknowledge whatever it took for you to get here to your practice today. To honor and acknowledge the long and complex lineage of teachers that is with us in our yoga. To honor and acknowledge the sacredness of the land that we practice on. Thank you for sharing that practice with me.